So I thought I would do a little video series on some of the widespread beliefs in Western culture that are false. And it may sound like an abstract topic, cultural beliefs, but these really affect our everyday moment to moment actions and quality of life, I believe. Um, so the one I wanted to talk about in this video is this idea that our power lies in our actions. Take action, actions are better than words, or whatever the saying is. Um, and it's true, actions can be powerful, but there's something more powerful than actions, and it's where the actions are coming from. So it's this invisible realm, you could say, inside us. It's what gives rise to the action, the vibration or the energy or the intention, which I think just boils down to the feeling, the real feeling behind the action. So, for example, if we're giving to someone else or doing someone a favor, but we're resenting it, or we're doing it to prove ourselves a nice person, a giving person, then the action of giving is colored by that resentment or that desire to be seen in a certain way. It's not a pure gift. The intention, the feeling, the vibration behind the action of the giving isn't pure. I've always remembered I was, after my first year in college, I was visiting my father and stepmother in England, where my father was spending a sabbatical, and I really wanted to show them that I had sort of grown up and become responsible and giving, and I was helping them do the dishes. I was drying the dishes, and I broke a glass. I dropped a glass and broke it. And my father got really mad at me because they were staying in someone else's house. And so that was someone else's glass. And I think the reason that that incident stayed with me is because I had muddled energies behind the act of helping to do the dishes. And I think the dropping of the glass, even though I didn't do it consciously, was a sort of squirting out of that, the resentment that I felt like I had to prove myself and that I wasn't feeling just recognized as I suppose, a good person. So I believe that when you do an act that arises, let's say an act of giving, it could be any act, but take an act of giving. If your act of giving arises from really pure love and a pure desire to do someone a benefit, even if it's a small act or what convention would call a small act, it has a more powerful effect than if you do some grand act that's muddled in its intention. There's it's very common that acts of charity or giving money the money can be squandered and go towards things that that are harmful. You know, if say the organization is corrupt, you feel like you're doing a wonderful act of giving. But you know, if you're passing someone on the street asking for money, um, if you could really be present and send that person love and see them as a human being, and let's say you gave them $5, um, it's not so much the amount of money that you gave, it's the vibration that you met them on. And you don't even have to make a physical act in a given instant. You can actually send love internally. And some people would say, well, that's just hocus pocus and you're not doing anything. But I don't think that's true. I think these invisible intentions matter. And so this invisible realm that's behind our actions, that cannot be faked. And I think we all have radar and we can tell when it is being faked. So then the question becomes, how do you cultivate an actual, organic, real feeling of love or alignment behind an action? And I think you do this in an ongoing way by paying attention. And you pay attention to your attention. In other words, you pay attention to where you're putting your attention. And the more you put your attention on positive aspects of life and your life, the more you cultivate those good vibrations, let's say. Because life, as I've said in another video, life is a barrage of inputs, sights and sounds, birds and trees and thoughts and feelings and news and information and advice and people saying things. We have things coming at us, and you cannot you cannot pay attention to all of it. You simply can't. So actually, our great power lies in what we pay attention to in that barrage. And what we pay attention to in that barrage, over time, if we choose things that are positive, that are beautiful, that are solutions to problems instead of the problem, over time, I've found that my life feels richer and sweeter, and my actions feel more and more like they're coming out of some inexhaustible realm. So, you know, a lot of people, I think, feel like, well, the world is mostly crap, you know, mostly negative things are happening in the world. So it's irresponsible or unrealistic or Pollyanna to focus on the happy things. And why do we think this? I think the news and the culture has a lot to do with this, where we see and hear mostly bad news. It's called the news, but it should be called the bad news, because what we call the news is really organizations finding the worst things that happened recently or that might happen and putting them into a headline. So the more you pay attention to that, the more that's going to show up in your life. The more you're going to get discouraged and feel like shit. Now, this doesn't mean denying your feelings if you feel sad or angry or frustrated, or whether it's about the news or something else. So I'm not talking about denying feelings in the moment. I'm talking about an overall way of being in the world, which is putting all this in a bigger perspective and realizing where your power is. And I think really, to change the world in a positive way, the only way to do that is to start with yourself. Because the collective culture and collective events in the world arise from a lot of individuals. And you're responsible for where you put your attention. And you're responsible for how you respond to things. So if you see something, say in the news, or you're angry about something or someone, and you complain about it and bewail it, you're adding to the problem. Now, if your heart goes out and feels broken and you weep, that's a different thing. But if you just feel frustrated and angry and overwhelmed by these negative events, you're perpetuating the negativity. You're taking something awful that happened to someone else, and you're saying, I'm going to make myself feel awful as well. So where's the math behind that? Really, the alleviation of suffering in the world starts with the alleviation of suffering in yourself. And you are responsible for that. And the way you take responsibility for that, I believe, is you pay attention to what feeds your soul. You pay attention to solutions to problems, not to problems. You can look at a problem and go immediately to what are the solutions. You can pay attention to beauty in your life. You can pay attention to what you love about the people around you, as opposed to how they annoy you. This is all up to you, and it not only helps you, it radiates out and helps the world, and it's the only way to fundamentally help the world. It's like an ongoing gardening practice. It isn't dramatic, and it doesn't make headlines, and you're not going to impress anyone. They might even think you're being silly and unrealistic and putting your head in the sand. Well, you're putting your head in the soil, and you're paying attention to your soil, and then you're going to see beautiful flowers rise up out of the soil. And those flowers are going to surprise and delight you. They're going to make you happy. and they're going to make the people around you happy, and they're going to be your unique flowers. They're going to be wildflowers.